The sky over Arden 9 was no longer blue. It burned. Fire streaked across the atmosphere as alien warships tore through the planet's defenses like knives through paper. Cities that once glowed with life were now collapsing into clouds of ash and molten metal. Sirens wailed endlessly, mixing with the thunder of explosions. Ethan Cole ran. His boots pounded against the steel corridors of Evacuation Base C, lungs burning, heart racing faster than the alarm screaming above him. "This is not a drill," the automated voice repeated. "All remaining civilians report to the nearest escape pod." But everyone already knew. There was only one pod left. Ethan skidded to a stop as he reached the bay. Smoke curled from broken lights. The massive blast doors were half open, jammed by debris. And there it was. Escape pod 7A. Small, scarred, barely operational, and surrounded by people, or rather, by what was left of them. Bodies lay scattered across the floor. Humans, aliens, refugees of half a dozen species. Some had died fighting, others had died waiting. The pod's boarding ramp was down. Inside stood a single figure, a girl. She wasn't human. Her skin was a soft, deep blue marked with faint glowing patterns along her neck and arms. Her long hair, a pale shade of pink, hung messily around her face. Her eyes, large, silver, and trembling, were filled with terror. She looked young, too young. Her hands clutched the edge of the pod doorway, as if letting go would send her falling into oblivion. The pod's AI voice counted down. "Launch in T-minus 60 seconds. Ethan froze. The girl looked at him. Their eyes met. She shook her head rapidly, panic spilling over her features. She tried to speak, but her voice came out broken, trembling, translated through the universal comm implant. I can't fly it," she whispered. "I don't know how. They said a human had to." Another explosion rocked the bay. The ceiling cracked. Flames burst from a ruptured conduit. Ethan glanced behind him. No one else was coming. He looked back at the pod, at the girl, at the single seat inside. One seat, one life. He thought of Earth, of the ocean he'd grown up near, of his sister, who died on this same planet 2 years ago during the first invasion wave. He thought of all the times humanity had taken instead of given. The countdown continued. T-minus 40 seconds. The girl's eyes filled with tears. "They're coming back," she said. "If I stay, I'll be captured, or worse." Ethan stepped forward. The heat scorched his skin. The air tasted like metal and smoke. He climbed the ramp and entered the pod, brushing past her. For a brief moment, hope flashed across her face. Then he turned and stepped back out. She stared at him in confusion. What are you doing?" Ethan swallowed. He forced a smile, though his hands shook. "You're going," he said simply. Her eyes widened. No, I can't. You're human. You need to." He grabbed her shoulders gently but firmly and guided her into the seat. The harness snapped into place automatically. The pod's AI chimed. "Occupant confirmed." The ramp began to rise. She screamed, "No, please! You don't understand. My people, I'm not just—" Ethan stepped back, raising his hands. "I know," he said softly. "That's why you have to live." The ramp sealed shut. Her face pressed against the glass as the pod sealed. Tears streamed down her blue cheeks. "I will come back," she vowed, her voice breaking. "I swear it. I will come back for you." Ethan saluted her, not as a soldier, but as a human making a promise without words. The pod launched. A blinding flash of light filled the bay as it shot into the sky. Seconds later, the bay collapsed. Ethan closed his eyes as the enemy ships descended, and the universe went dark. The galaxy believed Arden 9 was dead. So did everyone else. 8 years passed. Wars ended. Empires rose and fell. Treaties were signed, broken, rewritten. Humanity retreated from the outer systems, licking its wounds, rebuilding what little remained. Ethan Cole became a name on a list. Presumed deceased. But the truth was stranger. Ethan hadn't died. He'd been captured. The enemy, an ancient mechanized empire known as the Car Dominion, had taken him and thousands of others, not as prisoners, but as resources. For 8 years, Ethan lived beneath a dead moon in a labor complex carved into iron and stone. Days blurred together in endless cycles of work, punishment, survival. Hope was a dangerous thing. Most prisoners lost it. Some chose death. Ethan survived, not because he was strong, but because of a promise whispered through glass. I will come back. At night, in the cold darkness of his cell, he remembered her face, the way her eyes had looked when the pod launched, the terror, the determination. He didn't even know her name, but he believed her, somehow. Then one day the alarm sounded again, but this time, they were different, not the harsh mechanical shriek of the Dominion. These were sharp, melodic tones, clean, precise, advanced. Explosions tore through the facility. The walls shook. Guards fell. The sky above the prison cracked open, revealing stars Ethan hadn't seen in nearly a decade. Prison doors unlocked. Voices echoed through the corridors. Alien voices, human voices, shouting orders, calling names. A rescue. Ethan staggered into the open hangar, shielding his eyes as light flooded in. Ships hovered overhead, sleek, elegant, glowing with unfamiliar symbols. And standing at the center of it all was her. She had changed. She stood tall now, confident, armored in flowing white and silver combat gear etched with glowing blue sigils. Her pink hair was pulled back, longer than before, streaked with silver strands. Her eyes, those same silver eyes, were calm, powerful, royal. She scanned the prisoners. Then her gaze stopped. Her breath caught. Ethan, she whispered. He froze. His heart slammed against his ribs. You're real, he said hoarsely. She crossed the distance between them in seconds and fell to her knees before him, before a broken, scarred human in a prison uniform. Gasps echoed around them. My name is Alira of the Draconari, she said, voice trembling with emotion. And I kept my promise. They called her the Dragon Princess. Elira explained everything aboard her flagship as medics treated Ethan's wounds. Her species, the Draconari, were ancient, powerful, and nearly wiped out by the Car Dominion. She hadn't been just a refugee. She had been heir to a fallen throne. The escape pod hadn't just saved her life. It had saved her people. For 8 years she had trained, fought, united scattered systems, built an alliance strong enough to challenge the Dominion. All because one human had chosen her life over his own. In my culture, she told Ethan, a life debt is sacred. He shook his head weakly. I just gave you a seat. She smiled sadly. You gave me a future. She had searched for him across star systems, prisons, battlefields, refusing to believe he was dead. And now she had come back, not just to save him, but to return what he had given. The war ended 6 months later. The Car Dominion fell. Ethan stood beside Alira on the balcony of her rebuilt capital world, watching twin suns rise over a healed sky. You could go home, she said quietly. Earth would welcome you as a hero. He looked at her, at the stars, at a future he never imagined surviving long enough to see. Maybe, he said, but I think my seat's here. She smiled, the same smile she'd worn 8 years ago, filled with hope. This time, no one was left behind.